Welcome to my review for The Conjuring 2, the third film chronologically in the Conjuring universe. If you're with me for my earlier reviews in this series, you'll know I gave the original Conjuring 4 bloody axes out of 5, thought that was an excellent film. For Annabelle, the spin-off, I only gave that 2, so that was a bit of a drop-off, but I had every confidence that this would be a return to form. James Wan back directing. It's a sequel to the good one, The Conjuring, not Annabelle, and also I didn't see this one at the cinema. I saw it on DVD at a later date, by which point all the really positive reviews had already come and gone. This is a film that scored extremely highly on Rotten Tomatoes, just like the first one. So Ed and Lorraine are back again for another investigation, this time the Enfield hauntings in London. So that's a nice change of scenery from America in the first movie. Also, there's a class difference in terms of the family that we're following this time. The original film, it was this quite wealthy family who had this massive farmhouse and all these acres. This time we're with this somewhat poorer family who live on this really cramped estate in Enfield in North London. And you can taste the dampness and the poverty right from the word go. And the mother of the piece here even says in one of her very earliest scenes that they can barely even afford a packet of biscuits. So let me say straight away that I really enjoyed this film. Even this earlier in the review, I'm going to reveal that this is an excellent sequel. And I've only really got one negative for the whole thing, which is the plot structure, which feels kind of awkward, mainly in the first half of the film. We have to follow this family from a very early stage of them being terrorized by this demon slash ghost and follow that process through all the way to the point where they've had enough, so they have to call in outside help. But it takes quite a bit of time to get to that point. And the Warrens are sidelined until pretty much the halfway point of the film. And rather than the writers just bring them in at that point when we're already half done, they sort of shoehorn in these scenes where they're just at the breakfast table or on this chat show, and it kind of feels a little bit forced. They do try and make these scenes a little bit relevant to the plot later on, but still, the flow of the first half of the film does have its problems. The first film was exactly the same. I think it's just a characteristic of this series that you're going to have this problem because we have to spend time with the family being terrorized first before we come to the Warrens. But that's literally the only negative I have. It's all gold from here on in. I mean, the scare factor is so high in this movie. It was scary enough in the first film, but they've really upped the ante in this one. There were just so many clever situations where the two boys and the two girls in this Enfield family get completely frightened to death by all these weird and crazy things that are going on in the middle of the night. I mean, my chest was literally contracting at the rapid-fire nature of all these frights that come along, bum, bum, one after the other. I mean, that kind of dials down a little bit in the second half of the film when the Warrens come along. It becomes more of an intense drama at that point rather than a fright fest, but that's fine, and it becomes no less riveting because of that. And it all builds to this finale, which I think is even better than the finale from the first movie. In terms of the Warrens themselves, they're just as watchable as ever. And, you know, they have all this knowledge about demonology and exorcisms, but what I think they really bring to the party more than anything else is just this uncanny ability to calm people down, to soothe the situation. And there's such a tight-knit couple, so much in love, and I think that just protrudes outwards and manages to reassure people that things are going to be all right, even in the face of such adversity. There's a terrific scene when Lorraine calms this girl down on these swings in the garden. This is the same girl who's in danger of being possessed. And even better, Ed gets his guitar out at one point and starts playing all the kids these Elvis songs, and it's such a nice scene. And these poor kids, you've got to feel for them. They don't have a father figure in their life, and they really lap up the chance to just have this surrogate dad with them, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It was absolutely terrific. Probably the best scene in the film, actually. It's nothing to do with any scares. Some other good characters in the film. I particularly like the mother of the kids. You can tell that she's really struggling to deal with this ongoing problem and try and raise these kids at the same time. That was a good performance. And I liked the two cops who show up occasionally through the film. There's a really great scene where just after they first turn up and the mother's trying to explain all the demonic activity that's happening in the house, I thought this is going to be the scene where the cops go, mm-hmm, and then all the activity just randomly stops just as the authority figures come along. But then this chair just goes right past the police, and the police are just like, and you think, whoa, didn't expect that. So that was really good. Now, I mentioned in my review for the first film that there was some unnecessary world building, looking at you, Annabelle, and I wondered if that would be the case this time around, but I can announce that no, there isn't really. I mean, there are a couple of new characters who come in, but they're part of the plot. You know, they're not deliberately just thrown in there to set up a future spin-off, even if they would eventually be in a spin-off. So you've got Valak the nun, who is absolutely brilliant in this film, really terrifying. I'm not surprised people turned up in their droves to watch the Nun spin-off, because they must have done that obviously based upon how good Valak is in this film, and in this film she is scary as hell. There's also a character I guess we'll call the Crooked Man. Apparently he was supposed to be getting a spin-off, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen anymore. Maybe they just couldn't come up with the story for it. But in this movie he's extremely good. He's like this 70-ish year old man who died in this house, and now he's being part of the whole haunting, but very good again. Annabelle, not really in the movie at all. A blink and you'll miss her appearance, but that's absolutely fine because we didn't need her in the first Conjuring. We don't really need her in this one. So on the whole, just a terrific film, and I'm really keen to see what's in the bag of terror. I think it could be a very good score today, so let's take a look. It's a heavy bag. Whoa, one falls out as usual. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 bloody axes for the Conjuring 2. That is a superb score, not far off masterpiece territory. And the only reason I'm not giving it that is because of what I said before about the plot being slightly disjointed in parts, but on the whole, it's a terrific film. For my money, better than the first one. I know a lot of people tend to prefer the first, but I'm in the other camp. I think this was a big improvement, and this was the movie that really made me a fan of the whole Conjuring universe forever going forward. You know, the first film was just a good film in my eyes and didn't think too much of it, but when I saw this one and realised that there's just this really good quality that's going throughout these movies, that was it. I was along for the ride from there on in. So that's The Conjuring 2. I will try and get a pin onto the horror locations map. This film took place in London. I already have a pin for sort of up north in England. I don't know if I can just squeeze another pin in, because England and the UK is quite small on the map, but I'll give it a shot, as you'll see in a minute. But other than that, I'll be back soon for a review of the next film in this series, which I believe is Annabelle Creation. And until then, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.